We're back with another roundtable discussion. Each month, we have a new focus. Last month was unity, and this week we're going to dive into the conversation about the art of disagreeing. And is there one? So I could not think of a better bunch of men to join our conversation today than Orijin and Johnny Rocket.
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
Yeah,
we all need a little love.
Especially on social media. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's like you post, who likes the color green? And then suddenly, you've got your team green and your team any other color, and it's just so combative. If you like green, then insert random insult here.
Yeah, totally. I know in my world, in terms of the disagreements that I see online, yeah, sometimes there might be like a debate around, hey, who makes better movies, Marvel or DC? I don't think there's any actual debate to be had there. It's obviously Marvel.
DC.
But sometimes I think it's around a topic. Certain things are a little more palatable, a little bit less striking at the core of things that really matter to people. I mean, they can be more lighthearted and more fun, but I feel like just the reality of what's been unfolding in the world over the last couple of years and the intensity of emotion that's attached to a lot of the actual issues, I think that has just contributed to the energy and sometimes the vitriol that people bring into their online space.
Yeah, I know for you, Johnny, working in radio and having comments online, you've seen a few comments that have been a bit more of the troll variety than the uplifting kind.
Yeah, well, I think having an opportunity to do TV and radio, you kind of see it from both angles because people are there to pick on your appearance or people are there to pick on what you're saying. And they think everything what you say is a representation of your comment. That's why I think in social media stuff, we say, our comments are not exactly what my employer might also think, because people are so afraid to say, oh, by the way, green sucks. I like pink. And you're going to get fired because of it.
Yeah, there's this element of fear as well. It almost muzzles people from being their authentic self on social media because of cancel culture and backlash. It's really counterproductive. It's taking away the ability for us just to learn and grow from other opinions.
Yeah, totally. And when it comes to like cancel culture, I think there's a really important place for accountability. That if I'm going to say something totally belligerent, say something that's totally dismissive of another person's experience or another people group's experience, I think it's important that people actually come and check me and say, hey, like that's not okay. Like there's going to be some consequences. We're not going to give you as much currency or as much of a platform if you're spouting out some nonsense, right? So I think there's a place for that. And then at the same time, I feel like a lot of people who maybe hold ideas that could be seen as belligerent just kind of don't share them in the same way. Or like you said, they'll put that kind of disclaimer at the beginning. This isn't necessarily my employer's views, to try and not hurt feelings. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just a deeper way to engage around like, owning responsibly my own ideas, but also being open to the reality that I might be wrong. Yeah. That it's actually okay for us to challenge each other in ways that aren't fully like violent or judgmental, but just creating more space for dialogue. I don't know. I'm an idealist here.
But it doesn't really allow people the opportunity for growth. I mean, people are digging up tweets from 10 years ago and attacking people and being really aggressive, but that person's viewpoints could have changed over the past decade. A lot's changed. I mean, in 10 years, I went from, not being married to being married and having 2 kids. I was never going to have kids. So doesn't seem to be any room to allow for personal growth within cancel culture.
I think the interesting part, though, is that I think there's also 2 ways to go about this, because there are things that over the last couple of years that I've learned more of. I've learned more about, say, the Black Lives Matter, or I've learned more about residential schools that I did not know about. And I'm glad that I got to learn about it. But then there's other things that people are just there to troll or just to say stupid things just because they're looking for that reaction. And so if you're going into it like, I'm in to learn, I want to learn about insert whatever that is one thing. It's another thing going into it saying, oh, I'm just doing this just to be a disturber, and I don't really care what you think, going back to the color green, whether it's green or purple or pink, something that's doesn't matter as much, if you will.
Yeah. And then to be on the receiving end, like let's say somebody discovers a tweet of mine from when I first discovered Twitter. I'm not going to tell you I was probably like, I don't know, 15 years old when Twitter came out. But I'm not going to tell you that. But I think sometimes, people can go back, find some dirt on you, make it public as kind of like ammo, right? And to receive that is so jarring that now instead of actually just being accountable, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I did say that. And I have grown. Sometimes there's just a backlash of defensiveness that I'm now just reacting to other people's anger with my own anger. And we're all just angry now and not actually having any productive conversation. So I think there's responsibilities on both sides for those of us who, well, we all have our own history, our own colored past of learning things that we didn't know before. I think it's okay for us to have compassion towards our own selves for our journey. And then also for us to have compassion towards those who maybe have been impacted by things we've said in the past.
Yeah.
That's within myself. But then it's also the responsibility of somebody else to hold a kind of compassion towards me and allow for my journey. So it's complicated. It gets really messy when nobody holds ourselves kind of responsible for what we bring into this mix.
You got to be okay with if I say, listen, I didn't know whatever that was. I am so sorry. I'm an idiot. And if Orijin's like, man, I forgive you and I accept the fact that you were stupid and you didn't know. Cool. Me and Orijin can move on. If Hollie's going to say, yeah, well, you were an idiot and you shouldn't have done that, and now you're even dumber and I'm like, listen, Hollie, apparently we can't be friends no more because you and I just don't see that. I'm looking for grace and I'm looking to grow, and you're stuck in the past of my stupidity. Mm-hmm. And this is all personal too. I'm not even making this up. I love Orijin. Hollie and I are having issues.
Well, you bring up a good point, right? I mean, people sometimes are just looking to argue. They might just generally be defensive individuals. And why is that? Why does there seem to be this need to have anger and to express it in such a way that's hurtful and can attack other people?
If I may put on my invisible therapist hat.
Yes, you can.
Looks good on you.
Thanks. Appreciate that. I mean, for one thing, I think there's so much emotion that we hold, every single one of us, that we're not always aware of. So for one, like anger is something that's naturally supposed to be evoked when we feel like we're kind of like under threat, or when we're hurt, or when we're unheard, or when we're disrespected. We're supposed to feel angry. And we all process that anger and experience it in different ways. So sometimes a certain person might see something in somebody else's old Twitter account or something somebody's done recently that triggers this anger. And it makes sense, right? As much as I might think, oh, that's way too aggressive or way too over the top of a reaction, like chill out, give them some grace. It makes sense. It's coming from a very real place. But the other thought is, like we all hold kind of this innate and universal need to feel safe in our world. One of the ways that we sometimes like unconsciously create a feeling of safety is to like put the world in a box, like to make the world make sense by coming up with theories and worldviews and ideologies. And our theology relates to that too. We have a sense of safety when we understand like, everything fits within my box of understanding. So if somebody else is going to poke that box, or somebody else is going to present some other way of being, some other way of rightness, that feels like a threat. And so I might just unconsciously get super heightened when I see somebody posting that I think is a heresy, or that I think is bad, or I think is a wrong way to live. And so we just are all kind of triggered now, jumping in to have this conversation that can't really be a conversation because we're all so like our lids are flipped. We're not really, we're not really connected to ourselves or to each other in those moments.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a day that we disagreed well, do you think? Because I'm trying to go back to when I was a child, and it wasn't about disagreeing well, it was almost about avoidance. Don't talk about politics or what you believe. Right, at the dinner table. Just avoid it. So did we disagree well ever, or were we just really good at just avoiding the hot topics? And now we just jump in with both feet.
No, I think it was always just, well, we're going to Grandpa Grandma's. Don't bring up the politics because we know how Grandpa gets. We just avoided it. Or if you wanted to have fun at the dinner table, you're like, so Grandpa, did you hear what the so-and-so did the other day on the political platform? And then he goes off and is thinking you're just sitting there eating your chicken nuggets because it's the most amazing thing to watch. So you get to be a troll in person instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Orijin, what about you? Do you think that there's been a documented time where we just disagreed well?
I don't know that there is. I don't know that there is. I agree with you both. I think our society has really mastered. Well, I don't even think we can use that word. I was gonna say mastered the art of avoidance, but has it really gotten us to a good place? Have we really reconciled with and processed the stuff that comes up around difference and the insecurities we might feel about our own ideas not being good enough? I think there's so much that's just unsettled, and it's generational. And so we are in a time right now, everybody has access to a huge public platform. Everybody can vocalize and air out, even just in the process, even before you figured out your ideas yet, you can air out what you think. And so it's not taboo anymore to talk about anything, which means we're all showing up to the party with a mic and we're just kind of screaming over each other, trying to figure out how to be heard. And again, trying to find a sense of safety in our world because we understand it. And I don't think we're doing it well. And I think about even on a broader scale, if we look at history where there's been disagreement, the idea that sometimes, hey, somebody disagrees with you spiritually, what do? They got the wrong theology. Kill them, right? If that person is practicing some sort of spirituality we don't understand, they're a witch. Burn them, kill them. This is history, right? When there's difference or disagreement or just a not understanding of why people are like that, there's a presumption that they're bad, that they're worthy of death. So I think we're just early in the stages as a civilization of humans trying to figure out how to coexist across difference.
Let me ask this question for the both of you. Orijin first, if you were to flip through Bookface or the Twitter or whatever, and you saw 10 different headlines and people, what are the odds that you're going to write a comment on 1, 5, 10 out of 10? How many would you write a comment on?
Oh man.
And it gets you right in your craw. You are passionate about whatever this is. How many times are you going to write it?
That's good. Oh, man. I'm going to, just for the sake of answering the question, I'm going to say maybe 2 or 3.
Okay.
I have more thoughts on that, but maybe I'll toss it over to Hollie first.
Sure. It depends on what the content is.
Oh, it's something you're excited about.
Okay. I will write a scathing post, delete, and move on. I don't hit send because I have fear. I don't want someone to rebuttal or I just don't want to engage. It's too triggering for me. So I will write something to get it out of my head and then I just delete. And then I just try to move on. So I'll write for everyone, but it won't necessarily get posted.
That's interesting. It really is.
Okay. So I got some thoughts because I've had some recent experiences in the last few months of actually myself just posting things that I thought were pretty universal around compassion for communities that are marginalized and oppressed. I would think that most people wouldn't have an issue with that. And then witnessing World War III exploding in the comment section on my timeline or on my post. And I'm seeing my family members going to war against people in my circle. This is bananas. It's total dumpster fire. So I've been a lot more just conscious about whether it's me posting it or me commenting on things. Just the reality that, oh my goodness, people really, really, truly do not see the world the same way. Like you were saying, green is green. I mean, technically, a person who's colorblind could say, no, it's not. And that would be true, right? But people really experience the world so differently. So I've kind of had to come up with an assessment process around whether this is worth me posting or commenting. So first of all, I think about, okay, it's an acronym, all right? We therapists, we love acronyms. The acronym is EVA, EVA. First of all, I think about my emotional state. Like what type of energy is in me before I comment on this thing? Am I actually curious about how other people think about this? Or am I looking for a fight? Or am I just trying to assert dominance and power by being right? Because that impacts how I'm going to step into it. And then second is the V, like what are my values? If I say that I value like compassion and dignity and inclusion and also like assertiveness to a degree, you know what I mean? Challenging bad ideas. Am I holding those values in a responsible way, or am I actually like betraying myself and gonna regret this later? And then the last one is the A, which is thinking about my audience. Like, what's the relationship that I have with the people that I'm putting this message out to, the person who I'm commenting on their post? What's my intention for them to receive from this? Are they a person who welcomes dialogue, or is this just gonna get shut down? So if I go through those things, my emotions, my values in the audience, and I determine, oh man, this isn't a good look. Sometimes I have to grieve, like, I can't believe they think this way. This sucks. I think this is a terrible way to think, but that feeling is mine to hold. I can't necessarily change another person's viewpoint. So those are my thoughts there.
Do you guys think that there can be a way for us to be more friendly in how we debate, or do you think we'll always be more combative and challenging in a hurtful, and sometimes for some people it is a violent way?
Remember that 1% always ruins it for the 99. So even if you go into it saying, I'm just going to be joyful, I'm going to show them Jesus, there's always going to be that 1% who are going to do it just because. So you can do it as much as you want, Holly, and we could be as joyful and kind and forgiving as we want, but there's always going to be that 1%. And if you let that 1% take your 99%, then you got to focus on your problems, because you can't let that 1% mess up everything else.
Sounds like you're coming from a place of experience on that one. Do you deal with a lot of online trolls? And what's your process?
I work in radio, Holly. I've worked in TV, Holly. Yes, there's always somebody who's going to say something. There's always somebody who's not going to like a song that you played or something you said or the way you said it. And you just got to know that, hey, everybody's going through something. We've said it many times before. It's a third, a third, a third. A third of people are going into something. A third of people are in the midst of something. And a third of people are coming out of something. So there's a way for you to realize that somebody's going through whatever that is. And so it's just their way to lash out. They might not like the song that you play. But I mean, in all honesty, I don't really care. That sounds really negative. But you know what? We just love them with a loving and gracious heart wherever they are, and there's always going to be that 1%.
And that saying too, hurt people hurt people. I think if you can remember that someone might be responding out of pain, back to Eva, emotion, values, and what was the A?
Audience.
Come on, Holly, write it down.
I should have. Like maybe they have had, a situation and your comment is triggering. And so they're coming from an emotional place, and just to remember that that's their experience and it doesn't have to be yours. And you can respond however you want. We have that option. We don't have to respond in anger.
I mean, we do stuff for Mother's Day and we get comments all the time about, my mom was an alcoholic. My mom abused me. Man, that sucks. I'm so sorry for that. And Mother's Day is not going to be like that for you, or Father's Day, or insert whatever holiday we celebrate. There's always going to be somebody who's gone through something. And unfortunately, I can't please everybody. And so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to be as kind and gracious and nice as I can possibly be. And if you get offended by me smiling at you because you think, or the other, this gets me, where I hold a door open for somebody and they say, well, I can hold the door open for myself. You know what? I'm sure you can, but just let me just do this. And if you don't want it here, you can hold the door for yourself.
I used to say
bless your heart.
I have two.
Is that another personal experience there?
Here's what my grandmother told me. I always she was like my just if I had a question or I was going through things, she was always my go-to. And so she heard me once saying to someone, I can hold the door myself. She said, Holly, you just robbed that person of a blessing. And I had never taken a look at that interaction in that way before. I always thought it was them doing it to me, but by me allowing them to hold the door, it made their day. They smiled. They felt like they did something great. Sure, I'm capable, but it doesn't mean that we have to rob people of blessings. So that always was something that I remember and I go back to.
That's
Orijin.
beautiful.
That's good. Do you have anything to add in the, kind of getting to that point of friendly debate? How can we, in your opinion, debate in a more friendly manner that's respectful?
Yeah, I think the whole idea of debate requires some reassessment, um, especially in the context we find ourselves in the world right now, where I'm seeing and hearing people debate about, is there such a thing as racism in the world today? Like, were residential schools that bad? And that to me is just absolutely not even okay to hold just an intellectual question of, is this thing real? Or just the assumption that like it's up to me to decide what's true in reality. It's up to me to decide other people's reality. For me, that's kind of where I draw a line, where I'm like, this is not debate or up for debate. And I think that sometimes it's important for us when we enter into these conversations to address, and people don't like the word, but I'm going to use it, to address our own privilege. Take, for example, this is an easy one to make sense of. If somebody came to me and asked the question of like, hey, is your church an accessible building? I'm a person who doesn't have any physical disabilities, right? I can say, no, it's not, it's fine, it's great, right? And I can debate with somebody saying, no, it's great. But if that's not my experience, right? If I'm not somebody who needs a ramp or an automatic door to access the building, then I'm speaking from a place of privilege that impacts how I see the issue. So I think all that to say, I think in our conversations, we would do well to recognize when there's actually a diversity of experiences that I don't have within myself that would be really helpful in broadening my understanding. So knowing actually when it's my turn to listen and to make space for other people who might think differently or experience things differently. And that's the difference between kind of diversity and inclusion. Diversity is just a reality. Whether we like it or not, the world is full of different ways of being, different lenses of seeing life, different ways of experiencing relationship with God, right? That's just a fact. Inclusion is whether or not we make space in our minds and in our conversations to acknowledge that diversity, to welcome it and embrace it. So I think if we understand just how limited we are in our own scope, it can help us create a little more space to be curious and open to experiences that are different from ours. Mm-hmm. That's what I got.
I like to remember too that someone's coming at you, maybe they're angry or maybe they're making a decision that doesn't make sense. I just say there's probably a really great reason why they're making that decision or behaving in that way, because everyone's doing something based on their current experience, their current state of mind. And I love that word curious, because if we can get curious about where they're coming from, it will help us have a clearer picture as to why they've said that, why they've done that. And then you've got better understanding and you're just not making a knee-jerk reaction to what you think they've gone through. Maybe they're angry and you just think they're being mad at you, but maybe something really bad happened in the morning and you just aren't aware of that situation.
Yeah, totally. The energy people bring towards us in a debate, in a conflict or whatever, it's not about us most of the time. It's about something that they're carrying, right? That might get triggered in the space between us. But yeah, I think we do well to just, same word again, be curious and be generous in our assumptions about like what's going on for this other person while they're acting out or getting aggressive about this subject that doesn't really impact me that much, but clearly it does for them. And there's a reason, right?
Mm-hmm. I've noted too, Johnny, you are really good at those kind of situations. You know, having done a morning show with you for 10 and a half years and, hearing people coming at, us as a team or the music, the content. I don't know anyone who diffuses situations better and faster than you. How and
Thanks.
why? Yeah, you're welcome. Don't expect too many more compliments like that ever again. But how did you get to that place where you could respond to that kind of negativity in such a neutral, diffusing way?
I just never took it to heart. I just, from the beginning, one of my very first times in radio, I said something on the air that made a ton of people mad. And from that point on, it was like, if you're not close, if you're not a friend or a family member of mine, I respect that you have an opinion, but I'm not gonna go to sleep wondering what, so-and-so said about me or what so-and-so thinks about mine and Hollie's former morning show. It was just, you know what, everybody has an opinion. Everybody's got one. And whether I agree or disagree, you can say whatever you want, and, all the power to you, I guess.
Mm-hmm. This has been a really great conversation. We have uncovered, I think, a lot when it comes to the art of disagreeing well, from being curious to considering the source and just holding space for grace for all parties involved, yourself and the other person. Do you guys have anything else that you want to add as we wrap things up?
Got nothing. This was really enriching.
Place for grace. That's good.
Thank you.
Should be the title. I'm going to tattoo it. Now somebody's going to write a comment that tattoos are against religious beliefs and the body is a temple.
But then we can practice the art of disagreeing well.
There we go.
Yes.
I'm the Lord's canvas.
Orijin, Johnny, Rocket. Guys, thank you so much for taking some time today to engage in this conversation about the art of disagreeing well. Be sure to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, for more conversations about Christian life and culture, keep it right here to Faith Strong Today.